What's going on, Eagles Nation? It's your boy Showtime 804 coming back to it, back at it like we never left. Before I get started, go ahead and hit that sub button, hit that like button, comment on the video, all that to help build this channel up. So today was very, very eventful. As many of you know, that Doug Peterson finally was let go, relieved of his duties as Philadelphia Eagles head coach. This should have come as no surprise to a lot of people. It was bound to happen, especially after we saw the reports that the direction that Mr. Lurie was not happy with as far as Doug carrying on this team, and if those reports are true as far as who Doug wanted to promote or bring up, they were all internal hires, and based upon the success of last year, this past season, there was no warrant for anyone to get any kind of promotion. The only logical choice for any type of promotion would have been Deuce Staley, whether from being a running back coach to a offensive coordinator. That's the only logical choice that you could have made as far as for a position, a promotion within the coaching ranks. There were reports he wanted to make Press Taylor the offensive coordinator. And as we saw how our quarterback position struggled mightily over the course of this year, that wasn't an option. Doug also wanted to bring back Corey Underlin. Now, for those who knew what Corey Underlin brought to the Philadelphia Eagles as far as a position coach, he was our defensive back coach, I believe, from 2016 through last year. And we held some of the worst secondaries statistically within the NFL. Like, I believe it was over 40 plays that we've given up for more than 20 yards. So that there was not an option. Also, he's coming off of, coaching the Detroit Lions, who held the 32nd. They were last as far as pass defense is concerned. So those type of moves just weren't, logical choices. And then Matt Burke, who he wanted to promote from as assistant defensive line coach to defensive coordinator. Now, if Jim Schwartz was fired, or he was fired, they gave him the choice to bow out gracefully. People grew tired of his schemes, and we knew that as from a fan's point. Also, even your analysts on TV, your color commentators of the games would speak to Jim Schwartz's scheme and how it was easy to dissect and figure out. You don't want more of the same. Jeff Lurie was looking for newer, fresher ideas to help bring the team back to its glory days, which are shortly lived, dating back to the 2017 season. And if that was the case with Doug's vision, then he had to be let go. There's just no case in point. Just case in point. There's no if and about it. And you see a lot of people talking about, just a short couple of years ago, we were in the Super Bowl. Now, that Super Bowl can only get you but so far. Since 2017, you went from 13-3 to 2-9-7 to a 4-win season. That you got to update that resume as you go on, because then you run into keeping coaches longer than they should be without steady improvement. Now, had we, had that 1-9-7 season, that's kind of an anomaly. But to go back-to-back 9-7 and then a 4-win season, that means you weren't, doing your necessary job. Now, Howie is not without fault here because of some of the obvious misses in drafting certain players. But, we've held this mantra of the next man up. So that means that as a coach, you should be able to plug in any type of player and coach to their strengths. That's something Doug failed to do. So that's why I believe Doug is, held most responsible for this. Like I said, Howie's not absolved from this, because Doug is really coached away from what his players do best. If Rager, your first-round pick, is a guy who you need to get the ball into space, don't try to just send him on fly routes. And Doug waited too late in the year to try to work towards his strength. Give him the ball on some jet sweeps, some screen plays, end around, something like that. That if this guy's a playmaker, then you give him the ball in that manner. But Doug failed to do that. And the whole Press Taylor thing, like, no, that just wasn't it wasn't the right move. And when you read the report stating that Doug got tired of, people telling him what to do. This goes back to some of my earlier claims where Doug wants to be the smartest guy in the room. He wants yes men around him. Because if you look at all those guys who he was going to handpick, personally, they were all his guys. Those were guys who weren't going to try to upstage him. Now, I think that's the issue that Doug faced as far as not wanting to have an OC. And the way his arrogance got into with the Frank Reich and John DeFilippo issue, where the Colts wanted to, interview Frank Reich, and he obviously went for that head coaching job. And rather than, placing DeFilippo in as the quarterback coach to the offensive coordinator as the most rightful heir to that position, Doug let his arrogance get in the way. I can do this myself, but I'm go ahead and put my guys in place. And Doug never wanted anyone to upstage him, and we saw that. That's why you see the Mike Groh being the offensive coordinator when Deuce was the logical choice. Now, Deuce can threaten Doug's job, being that players respond to him better. And you could tell that's what Doug didn't want to do. Doug always wanted to keep Deuce at an arm's length because Deuce could have taken Doug's job. And that's the same thing with Press Taylor. Press Taylor wasn't going to overstep his boundaries with Doug, which is why you see the Rich Scandrellos and the Marty Mornhinweg, those guys were bought in. But, what did they really do? What did they really bring to the table? Because, again, Doug wanted those guys in place. He didn't want them overthrowing him. So you can see that was inevitable to happen, that Doug had to get fired. Now, as far as the next head coach, I want something outside of the box. No more Andy Reid tree. We know what that's going to turn into. So the whole report. So Mike Kafka, no, we don't want that. Eric Bieniemy, it's the flashy name, just based off of the Chiefs' success, but it's going to be more of the same. You're bringing in that same offense. We need a new set of eyes on this team. I'm not in favor of Lincoln Riley. I want no more college coaches. Those guys just don't translate well into the NFL because they're used to running a roster with 90 guys, and you have to cut that in half. Active game day. So, no, we saw it with Chip Kelly, and this whole thing with letting Doug go was in favor of trying to keep Carson Wentz because that was the obstacle in the way of your franchise quarterback. And so Lincoln Riley doesn't do anything for Carson Wentz. That's a Jalen Hurts move. Now you're just seeing reports, and I think those are probably some of those guys that are in favor of Hurts. So if you float Lincoln Riley's name around, and that's the case for Hurts. But if I'm in charge, I'm trading Jalen Hurts because we are at a lack of cap space. So trading Jalen Hurts, getting the maximum value for that pick. You could possibly get a late first round, couple of seconds. You got some pieces that you can get, some assets you can gain from moving Hurts. Now, everybody, they caught the flash in the pan, like those last 4 games. Yeah, Jalen Hurts, like I said in a previous video, his legs, they were flashy, they were fun, they were exciting. But those last 4 games of Jalen Hurts is what the Denver Broncos saw in 2011 with Tebow Mania. That's all that is. You see the runs. He's not a good thrower of the football, but you saw the splash plays here and there. But once, defenses kind of figured him out, he stalled. After every game, someone made an adjustment in the second half. He stalled. The offense stalled, and that's a combination of Doug as well as him. But with Jalen Hurts, like I said, he may be a good football player in the pros. He was a tremendous college guy, but in the pros, it's just not going to work, especially his throwing mechanics, not his mechanics, but how he throws the football. He's not an accurate passer. Yeah, he'll get a connect on a couple of passes here and there, but as far as that, he's not going to stand in the pocket and pick you apart. That's just not going to happen. And it's just better to move on, because if you're going to get a new coach and Carson Wentz is going to be your quarterback. It's just time to leave the past in the past. Get rid of all of that stuff so he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. And I don't want to hear these guys talking about the man doesn't want to compete. He's always competed. You don't get to the NFL without having to compete. And again, with Jalen Hurts, you know, those big games worry me. You saw his output in the national championship game. Yeah, I get he was in college. But you're going to call it how you see it. If he doesn't perform in those big games in college, he can't perform in the big games in the pros. Those games are bigger. So his last 3 or 4 bigger games, he fell short of expectations. You look at that national championship game against Clemson, the national championship game against Georgia when he got benched. Then fast forward to the college football playoff game against LSU. He struggled. And then you look at the game this year against Dallas. He struggled. So these things are common theory. Well, we've seen Carson pull games out in bigger games and do what he needs to do to make the necessary steps to bring out a W in those games. But as far as the head coach, I would love Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator from the 49ers, and you know bringing a wizard, offensive-minded guy to handle the offense. But if you can't do that, then I'll definitely keep Deuce and get somebody who has a creative mindset with a high power offense in that regard. But it had to happen with Doug, and like I said, the Super Bowl can only carry you but for so long, because we don't want to run into those teams where they're holding on to a coach far too long because he won a Super Bowl. Example, Mike McCarthy with the Packers. They held on to him far too long. He had a couple of losing seasons here and there, but because he had that Super Bowl, they keep him along. And I get a lot of, pushback from this when I say that, Mike Tomlin is another guy who's overrated as a coach, but because he won in the Super Bowl, they hold on to him. You don't lose those. The way the Steelers just carried this season, they lost their last 5 games. I'm sorry, last 4 or 5 games. They didn't win a game through December. And you can't have that. But because he's a Super Bowl winning coach, he gets extra, benefit of the doubt. And the way we decreased expectations year in and year out since winning the Super Bowl, that just goes to coaching. Like I said, we looked at Doug's situational football this year alone without having that offensive coordinator. Even though Mike Grove was, he took a lot of fall for the offensive slow starts. But again, that's Doug. Doug was in charge. And at least looking back at it, with Grove being the offensive coordinator, he always had a constant reminder in his ear of what to do, because we did have some instances where Doug's situation of football was a lot better last year as opposed to what it was this year without having that extra voice. Because again, Press Taylor was not going to overstep Doug. He just was not going to do that. Now, Press Taylor can go join his brother in Cincinnati, whatever role they can find on the coaching staff for him, but he can't have a role here in Philadelphia. And like I said, if we can't, this coaching is going to be interesting. And, I see guys talking about, they waited to the last minute. This second meeting with Doug was probably, how a parent talks to their child and like, okay, I'm going to give you one last chance to confess. And that's Doug. That's possibly what Jeff Lurie did with Doug. I'm going to give you one chance to explain what your vision is for this team. And Doug probably doubled down on what he wanted to do, and that just wasn't acceptable. So, yeah, it's time to move on. I just hope we get the right hire. I know that a couple of teams have had a jump as far as what they're wanting to do to make their decision, but we made the right decision today to move on from Doug. Just make sure that this is the best hire that we do. Don't rush it. Yeah, I know we're going to start slim pickings, but from all the teams that were available, no one's made a coaching decision. So we're kind of still in the running, and hopefully they got that plan in place. But until next time, Fly Eagles Fly, I'm going to try to drop something. It's definitely going to start dropping some videos regarding the draft this coming year. So Fly Eagles Fly. Till next time.